Well, it's a pleasure to speak with you. I'd say, how are you? I mean, it's only 11 a.m. Have you been up to much today?
I like most people that do bands also have a secret Batman lifestyle, which I have a full-time job in the music stuff. So
Mhm.
I work for a homelessness charity in central London as well. But I'm working remote today, which is a very nice, easy one for me. And also, you are my last interview of this press cycle because tomorrow I go on holiday for all inclusive for a week, and I switch off my emails and I ignore everything that Jazz sends me, and I have a nice clear week of eating food and drinking in a pool. So yeah, I've had a relatively chill morning, to be honest with you, mate.
That is fantastic. Where are you going?
I'm off to Greece, to Rhodes in Greece. It's my first time, so
Oh,
I've done all inclusives before when I was younger, when it was my parents footing the bill, not me. So I've kind of got the experience of it. But then yeah, it's my first one as an adult, kind of chucking a load of money into it and seeing how much fun I can have in a in a week, basically. So yeah, it's been I think it's come at a really good time to go on a holiday just after the album's released and kind of like the culmination of the year's worth of kind of build up to it.
mhm.
But yeah, I'm very much excited for a bit of sunshine and not doing much for a week, mate.
Yeah, I think you've earned a week of switching off, as it were, because there is no, I mean, there is no switching off from band stuff. So even though you'll be away and stuff like that, I'll imagine whether you like it or not, things will eke
Yeah.
into the mind, and a text will come through from one of the guys.
All it's got to be if you catch me when I'm in a really good chill mood and something comes through that's relatively exciting, I'll just go, oh yeah, I'll get into this, and then you blink and 2 hours go by and all you've been doing
Yeah.
is on your emails. I do definitely have to check myself a little bit. But what I'm hoping is that, as you said, having just put the album out, there's been so much the last like month or two that actually I'm kind of basically sick of looking at a Gmail screen. So I'm going to be kind of excited to be away from it. But man, I'm stoked to be chatting with you, and thank you very much for the really kind review as well, man. Like all of us read through all of the stuff that comes out of all the coverage, so we appreciate the kind of time you put into it, mate.
Oh, not a problem, not a problem. You know what? The best thing is that I'm far from alone with my praise. Yes, I loved it, but so many others did as well, and that is the best feeling. To see, for me to read other reviews, see comments, to see the social media response and stuff like that, and just see the love that people have, not just for you, but for what you put out.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's been a really like validating period of time. I think, especially when like anyone who kind of creates anything long form, whether it's music or kind of anything like art based, the payoff is so far down the line compared to when the work goes in. It can be almost impossible sometimes to visualize it. And then it's like, I don't know, we had this Instagram graphic out this morning. It had like a big list of a load of the reviews and the ratings. And I was looking at it and I was like, oh, it's real. I was like, in
Mm.
my head before the album was out, I was thinking about the idea of seeing like people saying kind words or seeing the streaming numbers be good or seeing, vinyl sales online. And you kind of think it's just an imaginary thing. And then you have to take a moment of being like, look, this is the thing that I told myself I was doing it for in my head for several years. So now it's happening. Take a moment, like, soak it up a little bit, enjoy yourself, and give yourself a bit of a pat on the back. Obviously, like most bands, we're not waiting long. Like the last message I got from the band was about new music that Danny's already writing, and literally the album's not even been out for a week yet. So it looks to me like I'm gonna be back at a demoing thing, doing some lyrics pretty soon.
I don't think I've spoken to an artist, a band, anyone in all the years of doing this that it doesn't pretty much want to start talking about new
Yeah.
music, even though we're here to talk about a specific thing.
Yeah,
It goes with the territory, right?
yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, and I think that, really like there's no motivator to create new music like a load of people telling you, "Oh man, your music's like doing really good." So you're like, "Oh well, if everyone's loving it, I guess I'll do my community service and put some more out." But yeah, I can imagine we'll have a little bit of time off, and then it won't be long before someone's prodding me to put some more noises down on the track, which I'm excited for. I'm sounding a bit moody about it now, but I'm always excited to make new music.
Well, of course, the future is looking incredibly bright. But for now, let's focus on where they gather. Because congratulations, I want to say on the release of that, your long-awaited debut album. It's only been 4 days. As of the time of recording, it's only been out for 4 days. So seeing the early response is fantastic, but it's got a lot of legs to go. It's got lot of running and walking to do before the dust finally settles. Is it? I had to ask, considering all the work that's gone into it, the time, the process, the long and winding road to release, is there a sense of relief to finally just be at this stage?
In a weird way, it feels a little bit like a weight off shoulders, which you don't want it to feel like that. I think it's really hard because a lot of doing music and a lot of doing your passion is balancing your feelings with what your brain tells you your feelings should be. I think anyone
Mm,
who cares about what they do can understand that quite a lot. In that, like, sometimes we'll play a really great show, and I know that I fucked up two bits of it, or that our track broke and it stopped working, and no one else realizes that. And you go off stage, and you have that choice in your head. You go, do I beat myself up about that, or do I focus on the positive bits? And I think that this point now, with the album coming out, we've had to really make a concerted effort to be like, look, for all of the weeks and nights and whatever we were saying, we've got to finish this, we've got to work harder on this, X, Y, and Z, or whatever. You also have to do the reverse. And you have to go, and now is a time where you give yourself more space and you let yourself love what you've done. I think it's really
mm.
important that once that weight has felt like it's lifted, and you're exactly right, it feels a little bit like a kind of like relief moment of like, oh my God, like we don't need to worry about scheduling Spotify stuff. We don't need to worry about playlistings. We don't need to worry about all this sort of stuff. What I want to fill that time that I would be worrying about it, and kind of use that relief to do, is to sit and absorb all the good things and do a little bit of kind of like clapping ourselves and a bit of a self round of applause for it, because you've got to, man. And the world is full of judgment and it's second guessing. And it's really important to be sure of what you've done. So we are, yeah, it feels like a relief, and we're incredibly proud of what we've done as well.
Absolutely. I'm glad you feel that way. Because ultimately, so much work can be such a drain on the mind, body, and spirit that at this stage, while you can have that relief, you can always be like, oh my God, I just want to move on and not talk about it. And I don't want to focus on it. And I just want to, let's say, go on holiday and forget the world exists.
Yeah.
And often you'll be asked as an individual, kind of like what it means for you to release the record. But I kind of want to almost see if you can sum up the band perspective of what it
Mm.
means to release this record.
I think it's really hard because I think we also, I mean, as a band currently, there's the four of
Mm,
us, but obviously the band when this album was starting writing was nearly five people, and it was with Zach, and it was a completely different setup. So it's really hard to, I guess, encompass it. But I think from my point of view that um, we have always known, and it's been a phrase that's knocked around the band for quite a few years, which is you only get one debut album, you only get one release. You'll never ever in your life, whether it's with different bands or not, get to release a first ever album again. Like this is the
mm,
first musical album I've ever created, and anyone in our band has created. And I think that we wanted to make sure that that feeling was all we needed. Was that it didn't have to be a, oh, we've made our first album. Is it good enough? Has it done well enough? Whatever. It had to be a case of we've made our first album, and by the time that hits Spotify and it's out, we are absolutely happy with it, and we are proud of
yeah.
it, and we are set. And I think that we were really good at hyping ourselves up before release and telling ourselves what was coming was going to be good, and that we'd put the work in to trust the process. And I think ultimately that's what's paid off, is that we've had a process and we have trusted it. And yeah, the feeling I think is mainly about pride, but also that's equally paired with excitement, because for every good comment, good review, for every good bit of feedback we get about the album, it's another door opening to more shows in the future, to more listenership and these things. And that's why we do it, because this album is here so that the second and third and fourth and fifth albums we do can be even bigger and better. So it's all about giving itself to the next stuff. And I feel like it feels a lot like a door opening as much as it
Mm.
does that relief and door closing too, to be honest with you.
Well, that's what the work has to carry on, right? You know, as well, you got to continue to push, promote for many months afterwards. The belief or the idea that you release an album and then you just sit back and watch, I don't
Yeah.
know, the money roll in or the streams roll in, it just simply
If you
isn't
can tell
true.
me wherever that's happening, please let me know. Because if there's a place I can go just to sit and wait while people pay me loads of money to make death metal, then I've been doing it wrong for a while, it seems.
I hear you. Did you celebrate on Friday? Did you do anything on Friday?
You know what? I always stay up till midnight whenever we have anything coming out, because I just like to
Yeah.
see it and have one listen to it while it's on streaming platforms and all these sort of things. And what I also quite like is when we put it out, obviously it will release at midnight for us, but then I can see if people have listened to it previously and things. And especially for this album, I was up with my girlfriend and we did a thing on our Discord community. We've got a really cool Discord group,
Yeah.
kind of with tons of people in it, and we're approaching like triple figure members now, which is mental saying it, because at first it literally was the band and our girlfriends just having a chat, and now suddenly it's like people from other countries and all this sort of thing. So we did a little listening party on there, and again, mainly just the band, but a couple of other people jumped in that are friends of the band and things like that. And it was just nice because it felt like other people were also kind of stoked for it and waiting for it as well,
Mm.
which is, again, you forget that when you're so caught up in your own excitement about something, that actually there's other people out there that are keen on it too. But mainly for me, it was wait until midnight, having a listen to the song, and then getting myself to bed and wake up the next morning, and that's when I try and do the real excitement, because I think the next morning everyone else is getting into it. I can then start asking friends, have you listened to this? What do you think about
Yeah.
that? And the feedback comes in. But I think it's just really important not to like push yourself too fast at once. If you stay up until midnight release and then the minute it's out, you're working yourself up to 1,000,000 degrees. You're not going to
Mm.
sleep that night, and you're going to wake up on release day feeling crap. So I try and curtail my excitement a little bit because inside, like everyone else, I'm still just a 14-year-old that loves heavy music. So when I've got a new
Yeah.
song coming out, I just want to be shouting from the rooftops about it.
Look how sensible you were. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I try to be a little bit restrained. I think it varies. I think if it would have been an ideal where we would have been doing like a release tour on release, but obviously where we're an independent band, it's been a really massive work process to time everything. I think a lot of people don't realize that to release an album and have everything on schedule, you have to know what you're doing a year in advance, maybe, and there has to be very little movement in there. We're lucky that we've got very, very not only competent but just like flexible and understanding people around us in our team. We work with
Mm.
Cosa Nostra, so Jazz and Kirsten do our press for us and have done a phenomenal job. And then our studio recorded at Rogue Recordings. Andy did the mix and master, all these sort of things. Max has done our art, but we had to coordinate so many moving parts. So yeah, there's a real sense of graft and kind of urgency to every little element that you're doing, which is it's nice to not have that kind of stress of. But we just didn't get in that process time to block together a run of shows and things to do with the album now. However, we are in
Mm.
Ireland next month, and I say next month, it's only about 3-4 weeks away now, which I'm very excited for, and we'll definitely have some UK headline shows after that, which is yeah, very exciting.
And you were just out and about as well, because I caught you
Yeah.
guys at the Underworld with 1050,
Yes.
not 1056, to the grave,
To
to
the
the
grave.
grave.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
those shows, yeah, and that was a great night.
Yeah, amazing. We love playing the underworld. We've
Mm.
done we have a little hat trick thing that we've done, which is that every summer in August for the last 3 years we've got an underworld show, and it's always worked out to be in August, which is my birth. It's always the week around my birthday as well that we've played the shows. So it's always
Okay.
been it's always been like a really good little birthday celebration for me to play like such an iconic kind of bucket list venue, and to do it 3 years in a row when literally pre-COVID, like if I'd walked into the underworld, I probably would have wet myself. It's
Yeah.
yeah, really, really cool. So we've been about, and there'll be even more of it because if there's one thing we can't do, it's sit still for very long.
Well, let's keep hope that streak keeps coming, and get you to the stage as well where you're headlining the Underworld as well. That's the
Fingers
next
crossed,
step,
that's the
right?
goal, mate. Yeah, that's definitely on the list. I think we've had to again, it's like curbing your enthusiasm, but I think you play it once or twice and you go, right, when are we going to sort this place out? And you think actually you've got to do the steps a little bit. But yeah, I think an Underworld headline is probably in terms of if you look at the kind of medium term for us, like a bit of a jewel in the crown. If we can get that, it
Hmm.
probably will indicate a good direction for everything else. So yeah, yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. All right, let's go back to the start. Now, this is a big, big one because we've got to go back a bit here, I understand. So it can
Yes.
give give your memory as much of a shake as you can, because I specifically want to kind of look at the vision
Yeah.
that you had for the debut record and what it kind of might look like in its earliest form.
Wow. I mean, the first bit of context to give is that I feel like, again, with a lot of bands, unless you are a very efficient person or very well
Mhm.
organized, you end up creating an album out of pieces to begin with. I think normally, I think it's very rare to have like oh, I know it's going to be this many tracks and this many things. And usually, if it is that way, it's not a massively collaborative process. You usually need to be individual. I found I deal with a lot of the management side of our band, and that has to just be a me thing because you can't bring lots of people into it. And writing's the same, is that if you leave it to one organizational person, you end up kind of cutting out some other inputs. So we've had a lot of input from various places for several years for it. But we knew from the get-go that it was going to be kind of conceptually written, much like previous
Hmm.
stuff that we've done. And when I've written lyrics to other things before, I found that I get a much wider use of vocabulary and I get a much more creative kind of flow through me if I write in a storytelling format rather than a first person view format. I was raised at a Church of England primary school. I wasn't raised Christian or anything, but I went to Church of England primary school, and my secondary school also had a lot of Christian elements. There was prayers every day and stuff like that. And I'm not a
Mm.
believer personally, but what I do love is biblical language and imagery. I think it's an incredibly storytelling method. I think the reason why is because that was the only source of proper like clickbait back in the day. Was instead of having like a title that said like you won't believe what happened, they had to go, God has done so and so
Yes.
with this crazy language and all these words, and that was their version of sort of like opening your phone, you got Instagram coming up, right? So I love pulling biblical language. I love doing those things, and that means that I just have always kind of written in a more storytelling format. So I was writing lyrics, telling stories about this kind of final settlement on Earth. that was inspired by a lot of things, but a lot of it just being around London, the idea of a big
Mm.
metropolis. I'm not a city person. I do a lot of work in the city, but most of my interaction with the city, other than music stuff, is quite negative. I'm not a big fan of it. And I
Okay.
think that I also I think historically as well, I've done a bit of digging into kind of London history and the poverty of London and things like that. And it's a weird love-hate relationship because it's
Mm.
fascinating. And being around London, and sometimes if I'm walking back from work to get the train, I walk across Tower Bridge, and every time I check myself, and I think that my commute involves one of the most iconic bits of like landscape in the world ever. That
Mm.
for thousands of years, it was, this city was the center of life on Earth for so much of the population. And I'm doing my walk back to the trains that I've left work early because I want to get home and I don't want to pay so and so for a ticket. Do you know what I mean? It's like it makes me feel so unappreciative of what's around me. And that made me just think about the city more and the effects of a city and what it's like living in a big metropolis. And it kind of culminated as the music got written piece by piece and in bits, partly by Zach, by Jude, by Danny over the course of 3 years. That it was almost like getting Lego pieces and going, well, that one doesn't fit there, and we're going to wait a bit, see what we can put out the box, and then eventually you sort of build this massive piece together. And
Mm.
yeah, I mean, collaborative is the only way to really put it because we were. It's an important point to make is that when just before Danny joined the band properly, we were about 70% done with the album, but we just hit a complete like concrete wall with it. Like we just
Mm.
everything we wrote, it wasn't right. We were starting to. I felt like I was starting to pull on ideas that I wasn't a massive fan of just to fill the space a little bit. And then Danny came in with new songs written that were ready from the get go, and it just fucking kicked us up the arse, mate. I cannot tell you. It was like he sent these demos in, and I listened to one of them, and I was like, we could put that out as a song tomorrow, and it would be one of the best
Wow.
things we've released. And knowing that then we had and because it's not just like a little thing, it's 25% of the band now had all of this new energy that he'd brought in for us, and it was like, yeah, just I don't think Danny realizes how much of an impact it had on the whole album and getting it
Mm.
out there and completed to come in and go, here's like Winter Sun, Mansions, Burning on Bleak Horizons, these two songs. He came in literally. I reckon both those songs had about 2 rounds of amends on them, and they were done. And it was like a gift. We could not have asked for anything more perfect. So the process was very long, but with collaborative and with real important elements from everyone in it. It's been a journey for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I kind of knew roughly where we were going with this anyway because of experience. I've been along, I've followed and understood the journey to this point. But obviously, to
Yeah.
hear you explain it and express it, particularly from Danny's input, that's incredible. I mean, that must have been. Did you have any almost, dare I say, ego moments where like, oh my God, these songs are brilliant and they're better than anything I've ever done. What are we doing?
You know what? Okay, I think it's really hard because you need to have an ego, but just yourself. You need to have an ego for you, right? I think there's so many people that will say nasty things about what you do. There's people out there that at any opportunity will just drop a sly comment or a thoughtless thing in that can really impact how you feel
Yeah.
about yourself and the art that you make. And there's so much self-doubt, and we're surrounded by things that are trying to make us feel crap about ourselves. That if you feel proud about something, and that's on the basis of you putting hard work into it for a long period of time, you deserve to feel that way. And if you don't focus on that feeling, you never positively reinforce what hard work does. And it's that I wanted us to work hard and to release an album and it'd be so good when it came out that your brain has no choice but to associate all that hard work with that positive feeling. And when Danny came in, he wrote these new songs and he put them in for us, and kind of we started getting this structure together, and the artwork started coming in. I was seeing it and I was thinking, it's not what I imagined the album being, but I'm
Mm.
happier. Like I'm glad that it's not. What I'm creating is something new, and I think almost the fact that it wasn't exactly as we'd planned it to be, much like any album isn't going to be, made us more able to appreciate it because it stopped being about self-criticism and started being about observing a separate thing to us. The album was kind of coming into shape as its own thing rather than just our ideas. And instead of thinking, oh, here's my idea, well, here's all of my own self-doubt I'll then attach to it, it became, here's my impression of music generally, and here's a very separate album that's got its own life to it. And I wasn't putting self-judgment on it, or if I've been lazy for a week and not done any work, I wasn't thinking the album's part of that problem. It's a very separate thing at that point. So yeah, you're right. You have to have a little bit of kind of patting yourself on the back, a bit of an ego,
Mm.
just to take yourself seriously. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else will. Um, and the key is take yourself seriously after you've done something, I think, to warrant that. And we've got this album out, we've put it out into the world, and we're proud of it. I think now is a good time to go, you know what? I think we've got something in our lockers that people are interested in and that we're going to show them more of. And I think it's going to give people what they want.
It seems to me that this has been more than just about band growth as well. It's been as much about personal growth. What you've experienced and what you've gone through over the past few years has transformed you, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think losing Zach was a really massive like life moment, and I think it's hard to perceive that because I mean I'm 24 and I'm not the oldest person in the band. I'm also not the youngest person in the band either. So what we've got is like a group of people that I think at that point in our lives we shouldn't have had to deal with something of that gravity. I mean, no one should have to deal with something of that
Mm.
gravity, but you know, especially at that stage of our lives, very formative part. And what it did, if nothing, is it taught us that when push comes to shove and when you know we're put in that situation that we had the ability as a group of people and community to support ourselves and push through it. And I think that as a life lesson and a teaching thing, you know, you dread to think about having to face horrible things, losing friends, losing people close to you. I mean, like the the friendship you develop being in a band and chasing a dream and a passion together, you end up attaching that passion to that person, and all the things you imagine doing as a band, you imagine them being there with you. So then suddenly, when that's not possible anymore, you have to reframe a lot of your kind of goals and ambitions as well. But I think that what we did a such good job at is using the band as a support network to kind of make
Mm.
sure those things never fell through. And it was not easy. And you know, I can only speak for myself, but I know there are times that all of us in this band struggled to a degree that I don't think we'd ever talk about in an interview, to be honest with you. Do you know what I mean? And that's part of what life is.
Yeah.
And I think that if nothing, this album is proof that there is not a single challenge you can put in front of the four of us that we will not beat. And I don't say that as in like a kind of big myself up. I say it because I believe it. That me and the three guys around me in this band, there is not a single objective or a single thing that we can't make it to. And I'm not saying that because I think that we're good. I'm saying that because we have done something harder than anyone will put in front of us. And that's, I suppose, it's very sad, but that is a silver lining of it is that we have had that challenge and we have beaten it, and we won't forget that.
It's taking any positives out of an impossibly negative period of time
Yeah.
that nobody can properly describe or sum up. And thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
But from say your view, from a vocal perspective, focusing on that specifically, and this album, I kind of look at some of the challenging aspects for yourself, where you kind of pushed yourself in ways that perhaps even you surprised. You were surprised by what you were able to do here.
Yeah, yeah. I remember a really distinct day recording. We were in at Rogue Recording Studios, which it's moved since, but it was in Wembley at the time. So we had a really cool place to record music because Mikey, who did the recording with us, he's a really good friend of the band. He's in a really cool band himself called A New Tomorrow. And most
Mm.
importantly, he's a very, very nice guy in that you can spend 8 hours in a studio around him and he is polite the whole time. He is calm. He's a good presence. And he just, I do not understand the head on his shoulders and how he can keep that character the whole time. But he's got such a, just a positive personality. So it's so good to ride around it. And we were lucky where we had Wembley Stadium, literally like a 5 minute walk from the studio. And I'm a big football
Mm.
fan. So I was like, well, we'll do some walks around it. AC/DC were doing their farewell tour, so we thought we'll have a stroll, like have a listen to a bit of Thunderstruck out the stadium without
Cool.
paying for a ticket, that sort of thing. So we were doing that and having some walks about. And I just didn't feel like I was in a really important moment. And I think that was a big part of it, is I just felt like I was with my mate, hanging out, making a bit of music, and it didn't feel like
Mm.
it was the music for my album. It didn't feel like it was the lyrics I've been working on for ages. And that kind of relaxing feeling was so much of where I felt like I was able to test myself in that, you know, there's a lot of the songs where like Traitors to the Ropes, for example, is a rewritten section of that where I just didn't have lyrics I liked when we went into the studio. And I was doing other songs, and Mikey said, "Look, give it a go, try some new stuff." The other guys are in, and I'd never done it before, but I literally was just making up lyrics on the spot as we recorded. And I think probably take number two, that was one we ended up using. So it's completely off the top of my head, and I never would have done that any previous stuff. But that environment
Mm.
allowed me. It sounds weird, but you're right. I pushed myself more because I felt like I didn't need to in a way. I didn't feel like I was pushing myself. I just felt like I was able to do what I wanted to. It was a really nice feeling.
What an intriguing mindset to be in. You didn't realize it was happening around you.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
and
Go on.
no, I was just gonna say it's amazing when you kind of finish a day doing recording and all this sort of stuff, and then you think about what you've done, you've gone, oh man, if I told myself I had to do it at the start of the day, I would have said, we haven't got enough time, we can't do that, we
Mm.
can't fit it in. And it's like, you know, I like to try and give myself like, if I'm recording one song, I want to try and do like an hour and a half for that song and recording, and I can take it in blocks and bits or whatever. And there were songs where like we'd finish it in like 20 minutes, and I'd be like, okay, well now we've got to listen back and delete the bits and redo them. And I'd listen back and I'd go, no, I don't need to do that. And I was building all this stuff up in my head, and actually it was less about pushing myself, I think, and it was more about having an environment where I felt like I didn't need to push myself to get the results I wanted.
Difficult to replicate though, right? Have you tried to kind of get that same mindset and has struggled?
Yeah, it's very difficult. You have to have someone around you that knows how you work, and also when you're working with like person who can basically sort of babysit you a little bit. It means all you're thinking
Mm.
about is yourself. Like when you go to road recordings of Mikey, you get there and it's very much kind of like you just chat and chat and chat, and then eventually you find yourself in front of a microphone and you're recording, and you're like, oh, how did that happen? And that kind of feeling is very hard to replicate because a lot of what I'm saying about, oh, I was just relaxing and losing stuff, I think actually is more of a case where Mikey was doing his bit to make sure every base was covered so I didn't have to think about it. So a lot of credit goes to that. And that reflects back on what we said before, but we've got a really good team around us in Beyond Extinction. We've got really good people around us that not only do they work hard and they're good at what they do, but they believe in the project and they get us as
Mm.
people. So when you get in a studio of Mikey and he's like, yeah, man, 8 hours with me today, I think brilliant. I'm not stressed, I'm not vexed, I'm just hanging out with my friend. And it's a nice feeling to have.
Well, that's incredible. I love the choice of words you used there. People that believe in Beyond Extinction. It is such an important thing. It's so different, but it's so easy to forget how important that side of things is. They've got to believe in what you're doing and who
Mm.
you are and what you're creating. And speaking of the creative, like looking at the creative journey as a whole, beginning to the point where we are now, what are some of your favorite memories from a kind of more group perspective?
I think we did a lot of shows that varied in size and quality when we started writing the album to now. And I think
Hmm.
a really important memory that I try and keep a hold of is that when we started writing this album, you know, we were really just sort of wandering blind into the music world. Like there was a lot of just walking into walls and finding where we were and these sort of things. And I have a lot of good memories of playing shows when I was at university with the band. So I went to university in Southampton. I graduated in 2022, but for a year or two before then, obviously COVID reliant and these things, we were doing
Mm.
some shows around where I was at uni, and it was the first time I think I kind of like realized that other people would take it seriously, and that I had friends that would come along and they'd pay for tickets and they'd watch the band play and they'd stay to the end and we'd have a great time and they'd genuinely enjoy themselves. And I was like, oh, what I'm doing my music is able to kind of give my friends a good night out as well. And look, I'm not silly. Like I can understand if they're not into metal, they probably would rather have gone to the student union and got some cheaper beers. However, what I did realize is that if I do things properly, you have the ability to create that. And I think that we would have been kind of formulating album ideas in probably 2021, 2022, and in that process we were around small shows and underground venues like the Firehouse in Southampton, like Suburbia and these sort of things,
Mm.
and playing with bands that we loved. And it was our first kind of proper taste of you make music, you make live music, you make a scene, you make a community. Obviously, we have the community in Essex, but we were very much, I think, a small band being raised by our scene. I think when we went to
Mm.
Southampton, or at least when I went to Southampton, we started developing our own roots somewhere new, and that memory of kind of playing The Hobbit. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a venue in Southampton called The Hobbit, and it's a Lord of the Rings themed pub, and they do drinks that are all named after the characters. As a student, it is phenomenal. Like you can't think of a better place to go. Like Tuesday night, you go, yeah, I'll drink 15 Legolasses and then fall asleep in a pub garden. It's like perfect. It's amazing. And they also had a little gig room, and we did a show in there, and this isn't a very good memory, but it's a funny one. Of We did our first ever headliner in Southampton. All of my uni mates came down. It's this tiny little room at the Hobbit, packed out. We'd have our friends' bands play. It was like proper sort of underground grassroots music, like good night. And first song into the set, we finished the song, and I hear a little bit of feedback, and I turn to my left, and Jude's on the floor by his pedal board, and I'm thinking he's fiddling with something. And I look back again, and it's like he's still not got up. And it's about 30 seconds. I was talking to the microphone, and I walked over to him. I was like, "Are you all right?" And he goes, oh, "I think I broke my knee." And I'll preface this right. I'm a little bit harsh with people. If someone goes, "Oh, I've hurt myself," my normal result is always be like, "Dust yourself off, get up, whatever." Like I think I've got it from my dad a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
I said to Jude, I was like, "Nah, mate, you haven't broke your knee. You're fine." And I looked around, and he hadn't broken it. He had dislocated it, and his kneecap was on the side of his leg. It was literally, and I looked at it, and I remember standing up, and kind of all the crowd was sort of cheering still, and there's a lot of noise. And I turned and I looked at Zach, and he looked at me, and I walked over to him. I was like, "There's no way this show's going on, is there?" He went, "Nah." And I just turned and I looked at the sound guy, and I did a little cross, and it was from that point, it was nearly 8 hours until the ambulance came, and we sat on that stage with the security guard, just sort of perpetually feeding Jude paracetamol while his knee was
Mm.
just where it shouldn't be, and all of us lot kind of walked around drinking bottles of Jack Daniels, waiting for the sun to come up. It was at the time obviously like horrendous, and from Jude's point of view, incredibly painful as well. Retrospectively, hilarious story to tell, brilliant story. Also because he was like unable to walk from laying down. He probably won't appreciate me saying this, but he had to do a wee in a big 2 liter bottle because we couldn't get him to the toilet. So
Of
I've got this
course.
amazing video of him laying on the floor of this stage, holding hands with my mate because he's squeezing it because they're paying so much, with half a liter of piss in a bottle next to him. and it's just like nothing sums up like how hard it feels to be in a band like that.
Yeah, yeah, those stories are so unique, just so specific to you and others, that you can look back and smile and laugh at them because you have to, right? Because
Yeah, of
the
course, man.
scenario is
Yeah.
so insane.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think, no one, everyone likes to say they're in a band and stuff to do X, Y, and Z, and you've got goals to achieve, and we all do. But really, like, I don't know. There's not many situations that make me laugh as hard as that when I think about it. There's not many kind of memories I have like the band has given me. I mean, we had a guy called Jackham who used to fiddle on guitar for us, and we convinced him when we played a show in Scotland that he needed his passport and he didn't bring it. So we made him climb into the back of the van and he hid himself under all of our equipment. We pretended we got pulled over and then we opened the back of the van, filmed him getting out, and he thought you could see it for about a minute on his face. He genuinely thought he was going to prison. It was unbelievable. So things like that where you think like you don't start a band to do those things, but I look back on that and it is so funny. I just laugh and laugh, and that's worth like more than anything.
Yeah, all the hard work you're gonna you put in already, and you will put in the future. It's creating you getting memories from it, like at
Mm.
least because, as we said already, as lovely as it would be that a ton of money comes your way, that just is near impossible these days. You've got to have
Yeah.
something, a reason to do it, and hanging with your friends and creating these new fans and creating these communities and existing with
Mm.
them is positives.
Yeah, man, and the community part of it is the big bit for us. Like, I'm lucky that I work for a lot of other bands as well. So I've been doing merch for bands like Harbinger and Osiah and Jested and things like that, and I get to see a lot of
Mm.
people kind of around the country that I wouldn't see with my band. It's what I really love is when I go and I work a show with another band and someone comes up and they say, "Oh, like I've not seen Beyond Extinction before, but like we have a little chat." Because I think if it wasn't for that band taking me out to work for them, that person who's listened to my band, I never would have got to say thank you for listening to them. I never would have got to see them
Mm.
face to face, say hi, give them a fist bump, something. Do you know what I mean? So that community meeting people and looping them in. That's why we did the Discord and things like that. Because like, yes, it's great for the band to have engaged people that want to interact with it, but on a personal level, like I like chatting to people that care about the same things to me, and I like seeing, if I open my phone in the morning, there's a load of people that have had a laugh on the Discord and a chat with each other and send things back and forth, and the reason they're there together is because they all know our band.
Yeah.
I love that, man. That's great. I've experienced that myself, and it feels good. And to be honest with you, like you say, I'm not doing this to make millions of pounds. Like I understand how the finances of the world work, and I know that doing a
Hmm.
band is not a way to make it if you want to make a load of money. But what I do want to do is make people enjoy themselves, and I want to enjoy myself. And that community part of it is 99.9% of that positive dopamine of enjoying yourself and seeing other people be happy as well. The community is what it's all about, man.
I see it at shows. I saw it quite recently as well. The community, the crowd you're pulling in, it's not curious watchers. It's people that know you, people that are fans, and more beyond, because you can sometimes stand back and spot what might be friends, partners of the band, and so on. It's bigger
Mm.
and it's more than that, and it's great to see, even from my perspective.
Thank you, mate. And yeah, we had the Underworld show, for example. Some people that we know from the Discord and the Osiah's like fans and friends as well. Like they come down. It's people that have come from like Germany and other countries to like come watch a
Mm.
show. And I'm not being funny, mate. I remember I went to Germany on a school exchange every year for a few years, and I learned German. I speak German. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. And I've spent my whole life visiting Germany and going to Germany because I love it. And having people go from that country to see my band play for a show, like I know what it feels like to get on a plane and go to Germany. I've done that journey. I know exactly what it is. To think about that much effort to watch 30 minutes of Beyond Extinction as part of a
Mm.
gig, that it's measurable to me. Like it actually has the effect of like, wow, I understand what that is. And I don't care whether people are doing it to try and make us happy or not. They're doing it because they want to have a good time. But my God, it validates us so much when you see these things happen.
It is incredible, isn't it? Speaking of community, though, a city's a community, right? So to speak. So we kind of got to delve a little bit into your lyrics, really, because of course
Yes.
the album tells stories about a city, the final city on earth, so to speak, what goes on within, drawn from personal experience, including inspiration you mentioned already from London, Metropolis, and the city
Yes.
life, so to speak. So I guess the question is, what prompted this idea, this initial thought process?
Um, I think it's really, really hard to put it on a first moment because I think a lot of it is about my kind of general just opinions and ideologies and stuff as a whole. But I I studied political science at university, did a lot of work for various political parties. During the 2019 election, I volunteered at all of the political parties that were in the
Mm.
constituency I was in. I wanted to get a good show for it, and really, really good way to make you feel quite depressed about the world to do that. It's a lot of negativity, and I met some amazing people that had really good goals in mind. But what I did see a lot of was just complete hopelessness, unfortunately. And
Mm,
it meant that when I then started working, I knew I wanted to work something to do with politics, but work in a field that wasn't political party based. So I
mm,
started working for a homelessness charity. I'm still there now, and I love it. And the people that work there are amazing. But the main thing it gave me was and it's not even like a tangible kind of metric to learn or a fact to learn, but it was a feeling of going, I didn't realize how much like hardship there is in the world and how bad and how hard some people have it. And you hear these stories, and we see news clips and things, and there's so much that goes on around the world that's damaging. But when you realize how much there is on your own doorstep,
mm.
and you really start getting a grasp of that, it makes a difference. And I'm lucky. I've had a very, very privileged lifestyle. I've had two parents that have stayed together forever. I've had a happy household. I have pets, and I've had holidays. And there are a very tiny percentage of the world that can say that. So I'm
Mm.
incredibly lucky for that. And it's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do the job that I do and work in that field is because if I lived my life just living my life, I wouldn't be able to be a real person. I need to kind of experience that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not living in a mansion, and it's not like I've not had the conversation with my parents about struggling for cash and things like everyone has done. It's not like I've not heard them going through bank statements and things. Not like I haven't had parents lose jobs. I know what the feeling is, but what I didn't realize was the true gravity of some of this um I want to say disparity. And the thing that really hurt me about it was that um, the ailment was often down to human non-action. It was that what we've done is we've let ourselves as a society or maybe as a species
Mm.
in various ways. The worst parts of us has become the drivers, and the good parts of us have become undesirable side elements and side characteristics. And I think what I wanted to do was create a kind of landscape of a city that was so devoid of anything good, of all the good of humanity. If you imagined a scenario of two people interacting, you removed anything positive from it, and you left it to just be pure negativity and the worst of us, how would that look? And I wanted to create a city where the worst of everything was, because in my mind, there's almost something cathartic to the idea of generating this in one place, condensing it in one sick tumor of a city,
Mm.
basically, and then the final song being about eradicating that off the earth with the nuclear bomb. There was a very satisfying thing in my head about dealing with all of my, probably subconscious things I didn't like. I probably did a lot for that, but it was just an incredible outlet to be able to write and conceptualize things about, I guess, a reality of poverty and things that was unfolding before me.
But what you're talking about now, a lot of what you focus on is so large, so huge, so grand that narrowing it down to specific lyrics and writing and expressing it in a correct way must have been incredibly challenging. Did you find your frustrations, your anger, annoyance at the world, so to speak, or the flowed quite easily?
Yeah, definitely, man. I think there's no shortage of things to make you pissed off nowadays. There's like but no person can walk around and kind of spend an entire day ignoring everything that could really rile them up.
Mm,
Especially now when we've got our phones and we basically have a direct line to just seeing and hearing about stuff that for the whole of human history none of us would ever have come into contact with is really important. I think that it definitely did flow quite naturally from me. And I think the song Apache, for example, I
mm,
remember I vividly can pinpoint I was about 20 or 30 meters up the road walking around from going to the shops. I did most of my lyric writing doing a specific walk to and from the shops in my house. It usually works out about half a mile, so I can usually do about 5-10 minutes worth of just sort of lyric ideation in my head. I just write
mm.
things in my notes. It usually just involved me listening to music and listening to demos or listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and just little phrases, just taking them and then breaking it down and stuff. And um, the idea of I saw these videos of kind of like WikiLeaks stuff, conflict videos, a lot of stuff from warfare in the Middle East, and obviously with what's going on in Gaza and Palestine at the
Mm,
moment and things like that, it's impossible to be free from seeing these things. And just seeing these videos, people getting just destroyed like they were on a video game. I remember my mum always told me whenever there'd be a person who's rough sleeping on the street when I was younger, if there's a homeless person or anything like that, she'd always say it's very sad because that's somebody's son or daughter. And so that
mm,
that was at some point that was a newborn kid in a hospital that everyone was happy to see, and that always stuck with me. So the lyric "bomb their holy lands to dust, orphan their sons and daughters," because in my mind, like from a young age, the idea of taking a parent from someone or severing that connection, that was true in humanity. That lyric kind of was formed when my mum told me that sentence when I was a little kid. Do you know what I mean? Like really
yeah.
that sat there. So I guess the album allowed me to, like you say, it allowed a flow of stuff that had sat with me for ages to be imprinted on a kind of template that I'd made more or less.
But you're going down some deep and dark paths here, to the point where you could kind of get consumed by it. Were you able to pull yourself out of those holes when it came time to stepping back and living life and just getting on with your day, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's you have to be able to section it out. I mean, I'll go back to what I do for work. There's people that I work with in the homelessness sector that they see and experience really like tragic, heart-wrenching things every day. I mean, let alone people experiencing it, but just people that I work with, they then have to kind of go home and clock off. And you think that they have personal connections with people that pass away. They have personal connections with people that they lose contact with forever on a very regular basis, and it's hard to be around that. And I think that in a strange way, I think we need to, as a society, not focus too hard on switching off and segmenting. I think actually, like a lot of people get very good at leaving their 9 to 5 at work and not taking things
Hmm.
home. And I think if your 9 to 5 teaches you important things about life, take them home. Take them home and apply it to your life and think about it while you eat breakfast and think about it while you cook dinner. Because, not everyone gets good insights and stuff. So I feel like to a degree, I definitely have got the ability to switch off. I go for a walk with my girlfriend around a lake and I have a lovely time listening to the birds. And like, I'm not thinking about the nihilistic content of the Beyond Extinction album then. However, the themes of it or the observations that kind of cause it, whether that's about poverty, disparity, these things, they'll still be part of my conversational topics and it'll be something that me as an individual I'll talk about because I didn't write the lyrics because it's just good to use for my band. I wrote it because I care about it, and I think
Yeah.
that I want to switch off a bit, but actually, I don't want to switch off 100%. I like that to always stay there and be part of me because then I feel like it ferments in you a bit more and you end up with a more kind of, seasoned feeling and opinion and all these sort of things.
Well, the last thing you want as well is to live in ignorance. You can ignore it all you
Yeah.
want, and that's how you then stop paying attention to
Yeah.
reality.
100%. Yeah, you've got to kind of confront it. I think that's one thing we've always been good at as a band, by choice or by not, is we've had to experience and process very, very bleak things. And I think that
Hmm.
comes across in the music is that you process bleak things and you understand them, you end up creating quite bleak output. And the album is a dreadful, bleak, kind of awe-filled soundscape. That's the goal we've gone for with it.
But it's real, and that makes it more relatable. Even though you're telling it from a story perspective, like an imaginary perspective, so to speak, it's still based in reality, and people can
Mm.
connect to that.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And we've been absolutely like really touched by the amount of responses we've had that have got that. Like they've really understood from that we're not trying to write heavy music and low breakdowns to just sort of rip bands. We're doing it because like what we're writing about requires nasty, low,
Yeah.
evil noises. I mean the U235 at the end there's a double drop part at the end of it we shift the guitars down to I don't know what it works out at, but I think it's basically like drop B sharp. I don't play an instrument, so I've had to kind of measure it, but it's the lowest we've ever written anything in. And like the minute we got that tone for it, it was perfect. 'Cause it was like it's one open guitar note, and it told the entire story of the album. Just one big kind of bendy bow sound, and that it just expanded and grew. I remember the first time I heard it, that shift in the drop of just kind of it was feeling like my stomach get pulled a bit lower to the close to the earth, and I loved it. And that feeling really, it's like you say, that's come from a real place, and we've I think we've captured it really well.
If you were to sum up what you hope listeners take away from the record, what would that look like?
Um, that's a really good question. I think it's so hard because I like everyone taking their own thing from music, and I think everyone should, and I take my own meaning from every music. Um, I want people to feel the dread. I want them to what I truly want is, as you would have experienced not that long ago, is to stand in front of two converging speakers at one of our shows and feel an open note from our guitars and listen to a guttural scream and tell me you don't feel the dread, because there is something different about how we do it to other bands, and there is a feeling behind it, and that's what I want. Is I want people to experience whatever they want from music, and I want them to take anything away, but when they listen I just want them to feel the dread. That's it.
Nothing like the Beyond Extinction uncomfortable experience.
Yes,
It's quite
exactly. Yes,
special.
yes. Our trademark way of making someone's afternoon just a little bit weirder and worse. You know what I mean?
All right, Jasper, got one more for you because we're hitting 45 minutes, so I'm going to let you go. What would success for the record look like when we are 6, 12, 18 months down the line and you look back? What do you want that success to look like?
I would like to take this album to Europe, and I would like us to be on European shores. I would like us to be touring countries that we've not even visited as people, let alone as a band. And I would
Oh
like us to
yeah.
take our music there because, um, obviously borders are only imaginary, to be honest with you, and people made maps hundreds of years ago, and now Belgium's a thing. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not massively kind of bothered about specific places or anything like that, or crowds or whatever. But what I want is to be able to take this to areas of the world that it hasn't lived in yet, and I sincerely think we will do. And I think that if we can find ourselves playing this music in front of crowds that don't speak our language, but they can understand that feeling, that dread, the lyrical content might not be in your mother tongue, but if you get that feeling of horror, then it transcends languages. And I think that's what we'd like to do. We'd like to transcend borders and languages with the kind of level of evil that we're putting out of our music.
We're coming to see you, so time for you to go see them, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, Where They Gather is out now everywhere you can possibly listen to it, whatever service you use, I guess, wherever. Anyway, basically, it's there, it's out on the wall, it's walking on its two legs. Go check it out. Jasper, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I hope you have a fantastic week off, generally quiet, chilled, drunken, great time in Grace. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the effort, attention, and kind of care that you've put into this record, because ultimately it's a two-way street that we have to create something, but the community has to nurture it. So thank you for the effort and time, and a really good chat today. It is much appreciated.
Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.